Hello there, I'm back again. I think it got a bit wet when I was even running from the house back out to the studio. And I couldn't find my kitchen paper, but I'm using toilet paper. It's not as good, but it's just for the purposes of this, it'll work out alright. So do you see what happens? Isn't it lovely what happens when you wipe it away after it's dried a little bit? So it's giving it a kind of a texture that I'm pleased with there. The same would probably happen if I wiped it away over here. You see, but I'm not sure I want them here. I suppose it doesn't matter too much to have all those droplets there. I'll probably go over some of those, I'd say. I kind of like it a bit though. But I guess you could say it's reflective of our Scottish day that we've got here. But not so much in the photo. So let's see what I'll do with that. But first I'm going to put I'm going to make colour, I think, for the sky next. So that means reaching for some white, I reckon, at this stage. It's a significant point in the painting when I start to reach for white, because it means that that I'm on the home straight almost. Because I like to just let the light of the board show through generally. It's only towards the end that I see it being appropriate to mix white into the colours. Just going to lift off all of the wet that's there. I think I could have let that dry and it wouldn't impact it the way that it's doing now. But there was something fascinating to me about that. I'm going to do it in the foreground here as well, because look, there's more there. There's something fascinating to me about that pattern that I'm kind of alright with, actually. Okay. Now what next? Yeah, I do want to re-establish some of the, although I put the white out, I'm going to go back first and do a bit more of the blue and brown mix in the water here to create a kind of a Payne's grey again, dark, that's going to be satisfying when it's placed beside the light on the water. Yeah. I keep remembering Matt Haig talking about the dark. You know, he speaks a lot about his mental health struggles with depression mostly, and he speaks about the river and the brightness of the ripples being accentuated by the dark, and how it's a lot like life, you know. And I often think of that. So what we're doing here now with the dark is we're accentuating the light. And I am going over those droplets in the water because I feel like they're a little bit distracting for what I'm wanting. I would want there to be a different pattern of light if there was light on the water. I wouldn't want circles of drops just now. Because to me what's appealing here is the pattern of ripples, and it's exciting to see all the ways that the water is kind of adjusting itself to fit the reservoir almost, you know. There's little movements happening in there that I want to capture. Or I hope that through painting them that I will kind of capture them despite myself like not really making a plan for it, but just with the intention of there being some representation of that texture. I think it might then just happen with any luck. Okay. So yeah, re-establishing something for the water, and I recognise too that that same tone is back here. I was talking about it being important that these darks be straight, but they will be made straight when I use the masking tape over them to mask off for the white, especially the white that's here in this area below the house. There's quite a lot of white, you know, it's bright on the water. Whereas elsewhere it might be more of a pastel-y powder blue colour, or Wedgwood as we sometimes call it. Okay. But I like that it's significantly brightest underneath where I want the action to be here. It feels like a helpful compositional thing, that the water is calling our attention by its brightness too over to that area. And then there's a second area of water here, and I'm happy enough even to cover all of it really just there, because I know that I can work over it with the thicker light paint. But I do want to know too that the land is stopping and the water is starting here somewhere, so it's helpful for me too to leave some indication of that. And I think to do that I'm going to put some brown on the brush, brown on its own, in order that it'll read as being different from the water. So pulling the brown down to meet where the blue is hopefully will let me know that it's no longer water but it's land. But I want to make it a bit more greeny brown, I think. At least the bits on the top. And actually I think the masking tape, I might need to wait until I'm doing the masking tape to really differentiate land and water from each other over on this side. Again, I'm kind of taking the opportunity to cover up some of those splashes that are just to me a bit of a distraction in some parts of it. A bit lighter back there. I didn't fill in the whole of that drop because it's lighter behind, and the conifers to me are very dark, so I'm going to mix up a really dark colour to describe the row of conifers there again. So the brush is really dry, the paint is really dry, and just scumbling on really. Scumbling is when you put dry paint on over a dry, that's what it means to me, and a kind of dry paint is being almost like pushed in or pushed into the surface, not manipulated with water but more layered on and pushed in. I don't know if this is really scumbling. I've put more paint on now, so it feels like it's just laying on the paint now is what I'm doing. And I'm going to put a bit of blue into that so that it's clearly different from the rustier coloured hill in front. There. That's us. Let's see. Here. We're still seeing the pattern of the drops underneath, but I think I'm alright with it. I think it means that, yeah, I'd imagine too when we do the bright of the sky and the bright on the water that it won't be so significant, I think. So for the sky, I'm looking at what I've already used, the brown and blue mix, and I feel like I want to put some of just a touch of crimson in to give it a slightly more thundery nettle colour up here, and then I can use that as a reservoir. If it's a bit dark I can put some white in and spread it out, but that's the darkest part of the sky up there. I maybe want it to be a bit more bluey yellow ochre in places too. A bit of yellow ochre into that for some reason, give me a bit more the feeling of that sky that I'm after. And over here too. Just steadying myself on the chair. I need to watch my posture when I'm painting, so I don't forget myself, and that my shoulders don't ride up too much either. Right, now maybe I can put a bit more white into that. I mean, it's not white, is it? But it's brighter. I'm looking at the sky as I'm making this colour, so I put a touch of yellow ochre in to the ultramarine blue and white to capture more the colour I'm after. And I think I can afford to make it a little bit lighter. Especially just underneath these clouds it seems quite bright. The transition isn't exactly as it is just now, but we can sort that out later. Transition of tones in the sky. Just picking up some more blue and white there. And I'm using the opportunity now to explain the edge of the hill. here, where it drops down, there are actually some windmills, you know, some, what do you call them, for generating electricity. But I can't really see them that clearly, so I'm not going to put them in. And they don't feel to me to be a huge feature of my experience of Gladhouse. I don't notice them. Wind farms. That's what it is, a wind farm on the hill there. Okay, so you can see I'm pushing up into the light with this grey, blue, grey, yellow ochre sky. And as the paint dries, I'll be able to, I think, get a transition that I'm happy with between the stormy clouds and the lighter sky beneath. I'm just going to kind of knock away most of the underpainted rusty colour, at least just now. And now I can kind of soften my way into the darker cloud. There's light still on the brush, and because I want it to read as being a bit dark, I'm going to clean off the brush completely so it's just barely damp now, and just to spread out the dark where I see it to be. And this kind of constant pulling at it seems to tease it apart a bit, like you might a tangle. It's just make it feel like what I'm seeing in the clouds here. And I want the sky to be lighter as it comes up to meet that on that side. There's a bit of a gap of light there. And then it gets bright again towards the horizon, just slightly. I think if you weren't there, I might be turning the board to suit my position. As I'm changing my brush marks, I would change the direction of the position of the board, I think, too. I'm not sure, but I'd say I probably would, because I can feel myself maneuvering around the chair here. Okay. So do what suits you when you're painting, you know. Find a way to make yourself feel comfortable. And be willing to change as you go, adjust your position as you go, and move your painting. But I find it really helpful to be able to clearly see and draw down, so to have your inspiration directly in front of you, or as close as possible to your painting surface. And then I want to soften that greyish cloud on the edge there as well, so the cloud colour is blue and brown with a touch of crimson, isn't it? And I'm just pulling it away so that it gives a feeling for softness of cloud. Maybe that needs to be a little bit tonally, a little bit darker up there too. Slightly. I can smell my baked potato in the oven. Okay. And I just want to re-establish the hillside. Got a little bit lost. Okay. Yeah, and I'm going to make that reddish colour to fill in the little gap and the dot on this side. First, I think the hillside is a bit warmer there. I made it very warm, didn't I? That's a very bright red that I've put in. So just putting a bit of blue over it. That's okay. And now I'm going to make a very dark colour with the blue and brown again to describe the conifer area of trees that's here. And it comes down to meet the deciduous trees, and so I'm hoping that when it comes down to meet them, that it'll accentuate their slightly lighter top. There's a gap in the conifers there. There's actually a line of There's a line of dark above them as well, which I don't know how significant it is, but I might as well put it there when I see it. Okay. And some other little bits of dark when I half close my eyes that I want to make a bit clearer again. And particularly down towards the water now before the light goes on. I'm particularly keen. Just worried that I'm in your way. Particularly keen to make the little bits where the water is going to meet the land especially dark, so that the water will really read as being shimmeringly bright. I can almost don't need to really know what's going on there as long as I've got the tones accurate enough. Speaking of that, I want to go back into the landscape there and put in something to describe the slightly lighter hill that's running down behind the houses here. There's a hillside there that's a bit lighter and a bit warmer in colour. And then there's one that's got a kind of a burnt sienna feel to it. So I'm going to make what I think will be burnt sienna with yellow ochre and crimson. Close enough anyway. And I'll paint that in for that field, knowing I can adjust the tone and colour of it later if I need to. Just kind of honouring every different shade that's in the horizon there, that's in the landscape there. And I've got a kind of a dull green now that might work for the, it's not great for there really, but where would I put it? Here maybe. Dull enough to read as quite bright in the background landscape, but it's dull enough for what I'm after. Maybe some there too. And even maybe in front of and below the houses to the left of them there's a little bit of a dull green there too, I think. And then quite a dark line of ditch or something behind that green. I just picked up some brown on the tip of the brush. When the brush is wet, I wouldn't want to be picking up different colours, but when the paint is fairly dry on it, and I've seen something that I want to establish swiftly before I forget, then I just pick up the colour because I know that it's dry enough that it's not going to be changed by the colour that's on the brush already. I know that the brush is dry enough. Now I'm making a brighter green, hopefully, with the lemon yellow and the ultramarine blue. I'm making a brighter green there that I'm going to scoop up now, so there's a ridge of it on the edge, and turning the brush over I'll apply it quite thickly. With my eyes half closed, I'm going to locate where that field of brightness is in relation to the turns and twists of the landscape and the position of the houses and things. So there's a bit of it here, and then it gets a little bit more muted, but equally bright really, but just a bit more yellow ochreish as it travels across underneath the houses, with a bit of white in there to just brighten that up a little bit more, and then scooping it up again and explaining the field that is in front of the houses a little bit lower down there, surrounding the dark trees and overlapped by the dark trees. So it's kind of pleasing to, I think, explain the edges of the tree line with the field beyond, the colour of the field beyond, and it's nice and bright like this. I want to give a bit more brightness to, again, as we go across it gets brighter again, I think. So it's more lemon yellow again that's coming into the mix, and maybe a touch of white too. And I'll scoop it up and lay that down for the brighter bit towards the end. These little flashes of field, it's a bit like dessert, you know, you kind of look forward to them, and that keeps me going for all the touches earlier that seem so tedious sometimes, putting in the darks and trying to really get the dark best you can. Now there's some touches of bright too between the trunks of the trees here. Might not be as bright as I've got them, but you know, I'm a sucker for the brightness in between trunks, and so I'm maybe giving them a bit more oomph than they deserve there. There's a few other colours now along with the green. There's also a lighter element to the burnt sienna field that I think I could get a colour for here. Just some parts of things need to be brightened up now alongside those bright green fields. And on the way to doing the water. So I'm mixing some yellow ochre with white really. There was a touch I think of red went into it. I'm going to see if this is bright enough. This is the colour I'm looking for. Just a little print of it there. I mean, it's quite bright what I've put on. It might be brighter than it is. In fact, I think it definitely is brighter than what it is. So I put a bit of red in to just give it a colour that's a little bit darker. And then I'll try it again over here. I think I'll maybe get away with it there. Okay. And I'm going to scan around now and see is there anywhere else that bright colour might be located. Just a touch there maybe. Maybe a tiny little bit here and there on the hillsides. Not exactly the same, but it's just, I think, helpful to put something of those colours elsewhere. And then what do we do about this? I think I'm going to put brown on in the first instance to describe this little headland of grass that's divided by water. That's dividing the water actually. So it's got a really long thin triangle shape to it. And then there's just some green. And the edge of the water ripples and is bright again there. But I also think that this slightly brighter green colour on the land itself that I can paint on just now too. I can put it on there as well actually. I don't know if it's land or water, but it doesn't really matter. I can put it on now. Okay. And I suppose I could do something now for those houses. With the corner of my brush, a bit of ultramarine blue into the white. And let's see if that's going to be dominant enough to describe the house. Not really, I think it needs to be a bit more just like white really in the corner. And quite a splodge on, aren't I? And then there's the gable end of the other house. See now, where am I? Might be more there really. And then the gable end of that one nice and bright as well. And I might end up making what's in between less bright. In fact, it could be deepened in tone quite a bit in order to show off the bright on the roof and on the gable end. Just trying to lift off the lighter colour now. Bit fiddly. Okay. I'm kind of alright with it there now, it's not too bad. Okay, so I'd say the next thing I'll do is mask off some of the background and get the water started. I'll try it here first, I think. So let's see now. Yeah, I think it might be about here where the blue of the water will be. I might use this, what's this, powder blue, because I think it's close enough without any mixing. As far as I know, it's pretty close to the colour of the water. Okay, so I've used another brush. I'm just going to dry the handle in case the drips come down as I'm painting. Now, let's see. I want to put another line. Masking tape there so that I'm really isolating a thin bit, and we'll see how it works out and see whether if it works out then I can do it elsewhere too. I'm just going to check it out here first. Of course the masking tape isn't really sitting very firmly on there, but it's close, it's good enough. I don't need it to stick on very much because I'll be tweaking it off any second now. I think that's okay for that, but I don't want that to be too bright. That's okay. And I'll need to let that dry a bit now, so what I'll do is I'll just do the intermediate bit down here that meets the dark line, but it's not quite as bright itself, this area. And I'm waiting on that bit drying, because I want to put the masking tape over that now to describe the next bit of light, which will be brighter and I think thicker. And this colour I think is what's down here too. Again now I think the brush was a bit wet still in the metal bit, so it's seeping water down. It's not that bright up there. That needs to be a bit more blue-brown again. Quite thin, but there's a blue-brown feel to that bit. Just trusting my instincts as to how much of the handprint I'm covering and letting be. And so that's mostly what's called the powder blue, and sometimes it's called Wedgwood. I think it's the same colour. I have both of them and they're similar enough anyway, that I don't notice. I wonder if I was just going to print with the top of that to describe some of those ripples, if that would work a bit, or is it a bit twee looking? Maybe I could even just kind of let it sporadically bounce off it. I don't want to ignore the pattern, and I don't want to have to be like slavishly explaining every ripple either. Now I put on enough light ones, I think, and my inclination after a while is to go back and do some dark ripples in places, but first I want to disperse this dark here a little bit. Just remembering every so often to half close my eyes so that I still see in that kind of blurry way needed for capturing the darks and lights as they truly are there. I'm bringing up the dark a little bit further here just to get the depth of field. That's a bit over egging the blue. But you know what I want to do as well is put a little bit more dark up here, I think. I suppose I can always put more dark on after the light, just in case I need to get rid of more of the underpainting. Okay, I'll keep going across here anyway with this lighter colour. And there'll be little flashes too here of very bright, little bits rippling at the edge. I don't know exactly what they are, but there's a contrast of tone at the edge that I think helps. I'll continue the light as it goes past that little outlet bit. It's over the little peninsula, and there's another bit here. I have a sense that actually above this should be field and tree colour really. So this is still a mix of the powder blue with the white. You could make that powder blue if you don't have it by mixing ultramarine blue with white and a little touch of yellow ochre if it's too if it's too blue really. I'm just putting on the rest of the blue that should follow on from that section, because I think actually I'd be bringing something dark down now to meet that